Row in Indianapolis. It's Combine time as teams look for their next superstar. Some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment will be right here. Get ready for the 2024 draft, baby. It's the Jake Asman Show.
Our coverage from Radio Row here inside the Indianapolis Convention Center at the Combine continues, and what a treat we have for you right now, Jet fans. Joining us right now is one of the preeminent NFL draft analysts out there from The Athletic. Dane Brugler joins us. What's up, Dane?
It's been a good week so far, so yeah, glad we could do this.
I appreciate you coming on. You know, you and I have known each other a little bit. I've had you on some radio shows I've done in the past, but first time here on the YouTube show, and I've referenced your work all the time because I think you do such a good job breaking down these prospects. You know, I'm a Jet guy, a Jet show.
Right.
So Jet sitting there at pick 10, a lot of rumblings of, hey, they need a tackle.
Right.
They got to take a tackle. I want to start with just the tackle class in general and get your thoughts from a wide lens perspective on how they look through your evaluation so far.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see who's left for them at 10, right? You know, how many tackles go in the first 9 picks. You know, I'm a big fan of Joe Alt from Notre Dame. I think you look back at his development. I mean, his dad had a Pro Bowl offensive lineman for Joe Montana back in the 90s. But he didn't make his son be an offensive lineman early. He wanted him to be an athlete. And so even in high school, he was a quarterback, tight end. He didn't really move to tackle until more towards the senior year of high school. And then the year-over-year development we saw at Notre Dame was so impressive to see. But I think a lot of it is because he was an athlete first, then a lineman, and everything came together so well for him. So, you know, there's a lot of Jake Matthews, the way he moves. And if you have a chance to get Jake Matthews, you know, that's going to certainly help your team. He would make sense if he's there, obviously. If he's not, who's going to be that next tackle draft is a really interesting conversation because some teams are going to prefer Olu Fashanu from Penn State. Some teams are going to look more towards Talise Fuaga from Oregon State. J.C. Latham from Alabama might be I'm going to say might be. I think he is the strongest player in the draft, just pure strength. And then you've got a few other guys that, like, to me, Amarius Mims for Georgia is the most fascinating player in the entire draft.
Really?
Because he is exactly how you want to build him. He's 6'7", 330, long arms, and he's a freak athlete. But he has 8 starts to his name. That's it. And so is that enough body of work for you to feel comfortable drafting him? Is he going to be ready to go from day one? These are the questions that teams will have to answer with Amarius Mims and say, okay, maybe he's not better than Fuaga tomorrow. Will he be better than Fuaga a year from now? And so are you betting on those traits? It's really interesting with Mims, just how teams are going to be a little bit different on him based off of how patient they are and their just total projection.
Well, to your point on that, it feels like it's do or die for this Jets regime.
That's it.
So they need someone that they could take at 10 that most likely starts right away and protects Aaron Rodgers. Who'd be the best for that guy out of the realistic options?
Yeah, I think that's why we see Fuaga maybe projected to the Jets so often, because he's probably the best just football player today of the group. You know, he's a butt kicker in the run game. You know, you can tell how much he enjoys that part of his job. Not the best athlete of the group, but a functional athlete, good enough athlete where he's going to be able to hold his own pass protection. So Fuaga, I think, makes the most sense when you think about the Jets have this window right now. You know, ideally, you're not going to allow that to hold you captive. So you're making a specific pick that's has to help you right away, or you're not going to, because you're in, you know, you have to think about the long term of the franchise too. But at the same time, they know they have a window now. And so I think that's why Fuaga probably makes the most sense there at 10.
How do you feel about Olu Fashanu? Because I've heard some draft guys come out and say, well, he's plug and play left tackle. Do you agree with some of that sentiment that's out there about him? And then as far as Fuaga and Latham, do they project more as right tackles? Could they eventually be left tackles? Because the Jets are in such a weird spot where it's like they almost need pick 10 to be a left tackle, but you can't force a right tackle to play left tackle as a rookie with Aaron Rodgers.
This is where your offensive line coaches come into play, because, you know, you work these guys out and you put them in a left tackle stance and you work them through and see how natural it is. How is it? Some guys, it's very easy, the transition to make. Some guys, they just don't have the muscle memory. You know, it's all at right tackle or left tackle, and they struggle to make that. And so when you don't have tape to watch, and, you know, that's Joe Alt is only a left tackle. Olu Fashanu only a left tackle. J.C. Latham only a right tackle at Alabama. Fuaga is a right tackle at Oregon State. You know, if you don't have the proven on the tape evidence that he can play both sides, that's where you really lean on your coaching staff during the draft process during the private workouts and the pro days to work these guys out and give you their opinion about whether or not they think they can make that move. It's a projection, but when you have hands-on with these coaches, I think that's why you pay the coaches all that money.
Which teams before the Jets in the first 9 could you see taking a tackle?
It starts with 5 with the Chargers because we know Jim Harbaugh and the offense he wants to be, the identity he wants to build in the trenches. That's how he is. So 5 is certainly possible. I think 7 with the Tennessee Titans. They need to get better on the offensive line. And, the Falcons, I don't think they will. The Bears, I don't think they will. So really, it's just those 2 teams. And then, of course, we're going to have some trades in the top 10. It's going to happen. And it's just a matter of are teams trading up for the quarterbacks? They going for the receivers? Or is there a team that might be looking to trade up for a tackle? I doubt it just because there's so many tackles in this group. But, you just never know.
If you're the Jets, would you actually consider trading up for a tackle? I'm not saying maybe you give up next year's 1, but
right.
I mean, if you're Joe Douglas, what do I care about picks in 2025? I might not be here.
If you love a player that much and you feel like there's such a gap between, just hypothetical, between Alt and Fashanu or the rest of these tackles, you have to at least see how much it would cost, because I think there's some of these teams will be just fine. Another team, say the Titans, they might be just fine with whatever tackle's left for them. And if they can pick up an extra 3rd in the process, sure, yeah, we'll move back and we'll pick up a 3rd and a 5th next year, whatever it ends up being. You don't have to break the bank, but Joe Douglas is not doing his job if he's not at least looking at those scenarios. And I'm sure he is. He's making those calls now just to say, yeah, would you be interested? And this is, we're looking maybe if this guy's on the, or if the board plays out a certain way, we'd be interested in moving up. And so when draft day comes, you're not surprised by any scenario.
You mentioned the trading up possibility. How about trading back? A lot of Jet fans say, hey, Jets don't have a 2nd round pick because of the Aaron Rodgers deal. Move back some spots, recoup that too. And it's such a great tackle class. You still could get that player. Thoughts on teams that maybe are looking to move up? Typically it's for a quarterback. So It's kind of a 2-part question. Could you see the trade back? And would it be for one of these quarterbacks maybe rising perhaps this week to be more in that mix in the top 15?
Yeah, let's just say quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, which is very, very likely. And then let's say, so that next quarterback's going to be J.J. McCarthy. The Vikings at 11, Broncos at 12, the Raiders at 13. Like, there's some teams in that mix that you could see trying to get up there. And yeah, maybe if I'm the Jets, the Raiders trying to leapfrog the Broncos and the Vikings to get to 10 and get the quarterback. Sure, it's certainly a possibility. And if you can get a 2nd round pick out of it, and if you love these tackles enough, or where they're similar graded, then yeah, why not make that move? But again, I don't think if you're the Jets, you don't trade away from a higher graded tackle to take a plan B or C just to get that 2nd round pick. I think if you like a guy outright, clearly better than the other guys, I think you stick and pick.
How do you feel about these receivers? And I'll get to Brock Bowers, who's very polarizing amongst Jet fans at the moment. But there is a scenario where, let's say the Jets adequately address the offensive line in free agency. They're comfortable, best player available. Hey, it happens to be a receiver. Last time they took a receiver at pick 10 was Garrett Wilson. Every Jet fan loves that one. So just your thoughts on these receivers. Could you see one of the quote-unquote big 3 making it to number 10?
I'll be shocked if the top 3 gets out of the top 6.
Really?
I really will. Well, I shouldn't say shocked, because there's a good chance quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, and then there's a good chance quarterbacks go 4, 5, 6. Just with this draft, the way
talking about receivers 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, sorry, receivers 4, 5, 6. But I can't see any of those 3, even if they don't go top 6. I can't see any of those 3 receivers falling to 10. The Bears at 9. One of these teams trading up. I mean, it's just these guys are too good to fall that far. So, but if you're the Jets, who knows? If you have a big enough grade on them, that's another. You discuss what it would cost to move up to get one of these guys. If you think that it's hard with rookie receivers in terms of stepping in right away and truly making an impact. But these 3 guys are just, they're different. And so Brock Bowers is probably the more realistic option if they went that way. But these 3 receivers, you at least have the conversation. So if one of them were to fall to 7, you're ready to pounce if that's what you want to do.
You mentioned Brock Bowers. I brought him up. How do you evaluate him? Where is he in your list of top prospects? And if he's there at 10 and the Jets took him, what would be your reaction?
I mean, he's one of the top 10 players in this draft. It's just not everyone's going to be on board drafting a tight end, and plain and simple. And I get it. You look around the NFL and you see guys drafted 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round that are very good tight ends in this class or in this league. you don't have to use a premium first-round pick on one. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't, because Brock Bowers is a special player. I think it just comes down to who is going to impact your roster the most, plain and simple. And if you have an offensive play caller who understands how to use Brock Bowers, because that's a key part of this.
Sure.
He's not a guy you just line. He's not a true wide tight end. You're just going to line up in line and say, let's run our offense. You're going to line him up out wide. He's going to play in a slot. He's going to play in the backfield. You're going to design your offense to really feature a player like that. Not every offensive play caller is ready to do that or prepared to make that type of commitment. But for the team that does, it could really pay immediate dividends because he gets open before the catch. He's dominant at the catch point, and then after the catch, he creates. He can those hidden yards. He finds them. So a 7-yard gain for most tight ends, he finds a way to get 11. He's very good at that consistently on tape. So yeah, Brock Bowers is, and the football character's off the charts. I mean, he had the tightrope ankle surgery this year. And I remember Kirby Smart was getting questions about, hey, you think he'll just shut it down and, prepare for the draft? And he just kind of chuckled like, you guys not met Brock before? And usually that's like at least a 4-week injury, 5-week, 6-week injury. He missed 2 games. And so this is a guy that you know what you're getting. It's just a matter of, does your offensive coaching staff have a plan in place to make sure that you're fully utilizing a weapon like that?
How do you feel about some of the day 2 receivers, day 2 offensive tackles, interior offensive linemen? These are all needs. Jets owner Woody Johnson said this offseason is all about offense. So, I mean, everyone understands what the Jets need to do with Rodgers coming back. Your thoughts on some day 2 options at those positions?
I do think there's a pretty sizable drop-off at tackle. If you don't get one of those top 6 or 7 guys, I don't know that you're going to love your options on day 2, especially if you want someone to start right away. Now at receiver's always going to be deep, right? We're always going to find somebody. And you have to sacrifice something. With a guy like Roman Wilson, you're sacrificing size, but you're getting speed and a guy that can get open down the field. Adonai Mitchell from Texas, I think, is one of the few receivers outside the top 4 that really has true X potential as an outside guy. So it just depends on what exactly you're looking for. And, if they're looking for a true perimeter guy, are they open to bringing in someone that can work in the slot? So this receiver class is deep. I think there are 17 in my top 100. And there's a lot of diversity in terms of what these receivers offer. Some guys are, big and fast. Others are smaller and quicker than fast. Others are really good at the catch point. Others are masters in terms of their route running. So depends on what you like and what you want specifically, and this receiver class has something for you.
That is good to hear. I think a lot of Jet fans are excited about that. Now, Dane, before we wrap up, you talk with people in scouting circles, you talk with executives all the time. You do this year-round. What is the perception of Joe Douglas, the GM, right now? Because when the Jets hired him, he was, wow, how did the Jets get Joe Douglas? And now, he's entering a pivotal offseason, year 6 of a 6-year deal, 5th full offseason as he got hired in June of 2019. What's the perception of Joe Douglas, and how would you evaluate what he has done in his tenure as the Jets GM?
Obviously, the quarterback is the main conversation. Like, he hasn't been able to get that right, and that is what is that's the dark cloud over this franchise. And until we see Aaron Rodgers out there healthy, making plays, that dark cloud's not going away. So, but it's hypothetical. Aaron Rodgers is out there. He plays 17 games this year, and he's 80% of what we saw the last time he was on the field. Jets are going to the playoffs, and all of a sudden our view of Joe Douglas is different than what the public narrative might have been last year. So it's all about the quarterback. If you don't get the quarterback right, even though they have a top 5 defense in the NFL, clearly he drafted one of the best young playmakers in the league in Garrett Wilson. He has tried to invest in the offensive line. Mekhi Becton didn't work out. Unfortunately, AVT hasn't been able to stay healthy. So there are circumstances here that I think have been working against him. And I'm not trying to be a Joe Douglas apologist, but it's not as simple as, according to Bill Parcells, you're as good as your record is. I get that. But when you really dive into the context of all these things, some of these things were unavoidable. And now that, that happened, these injuries happen. Can you build this roster to climb yourself out of this hole? And so much will be dependent on the quarterback position. That's just the way the Jets are, or the way that they've kind of built this thing in the corner they've backed themselves into. But I mean, the NFL is just a better place if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. It is. And hopefully we see him out there. Hopefully we see him. He's another year older, coming off major injury, but it's going to be fun to see him back out there again.
How did you feel about Zach Wilson coming out of BYU, and what were your thoughts watching why it just never worked for him with the Jets?
Yeah, and I think it's strictly a confidence thing. I really do. And I liked him at BYU because he could work off platform. He's, some of the throws that he's making. I think it really speaks to when you're looking at the quarterback position, you're really evaluating it. You have to get guys that are mentally tough, have the confidence to, because you're gonna face failure in the NFL as a quarterback. It's inevitable. I don't care how good you are, you're gonna face failure. But are you Jalen Hurts, where every mistake he faced, he's better because of it? He didn't let that bury him. Where with Zach Wilson and some other guys, it's a common theme as once adversity hit and once you faced all these roadblocks, you're not able to consistently overcome them. And it's hard to do when you're talking to Caleb Williams or talking to Drake May and Jaden Daniels and really figure out how are they wired, what's the mental makeup? Do they have that dog in them? So when adversity hits, they're going to be able to raise everybody else around them. It's not an easy thing to do, but that's the key to drafting. Obviously, the on-field stuff matters, but you need a guy that's going to be a leader and is mentally tough enough to handle just the rigors of playing the position at a high level.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this because we're talking about quarterbacks. Day 3, any guys that come to mind that could potentially sit behind an Aaron Rodgers for a year or two and maybe develop into a starting caliber quarterback in this league?
I really like Michael Pratt from Tulane. He's a guy that is he has a baseball background and then really made that transition to football in high school, and it got better and better every year. And there's not one trait that you could point to and say, oh, he's elite in this area. But he's pretty good across the board, and I still think he's getting better and better. So I really like his mentality that he plays with. He understands where to go with the football. He's accurate. He doesn't turn the ball over. So if I have a pick in, say, the 4th round, and I'm looking for this year's Aiden O'Connell or, a guy that if he needs to play, he can, but he also has some upside. So maybe he could be the answer down the road. Michael Pratt would be that guy.
Quick hitters at the buzzer here, Dane. How many first-round quarterbacks? How many first-round offensive linemen?
Quarterbacks, I'll say there's 4. And then an offensive lineman, gosh.
How about specifically tackles?
Just at tackles, and if we're including the Washington left tackle in there, I'll say 8. I mean, there's going to be a lot of tackles coming off the board, yeah.
You're going to be a busy guy these next couple of weeks. I appreciate you giving us some time.
Love it, man. Thanks.
He's Dane Brugler. My name is Jake Asman. We are presented by Roan Apparel, folks. Roan will upgrade your closet. Simple enough. Promo code Asman, 20% off at roan.com. I'm rocking the commuter shirt all week long here in Indy. Thanks again to Dane Brugler from The Athletic for joining the show. Make sure you're locked in. Live content throughout the week will continue here. It's Jake Asman with you, live from the Combine here in Indianapolis.